Lisa Broom. This is the CBC Evening News. The statistics are not good when it comes to domestic violence in Barbados, and government has moved to strengthen legislation to remove the scourge. Leading off debate on the Domestic Violence Protection Orders Amendment Bill 2016 in the lower house this morning, Social Care Minister Steve Blackett says this type of violence is still too prevalent. Referring to a Cadre survey conducted in 2008, Mr. Blackett says 27% of Barbadian households at that time had experienced some form of domestic violence. He says between 2000 and 2007, 21% of murders were attributed to violence in the home, and all the victims were women. Mr. Blackett gave a further breakdown of murders as a result of domestic violence between 2003 and 2015.
The highest incidence of death due to domestic violence over the last 11 years occurred in 2003 in Barbados, with a figure of 10 women dying at the hands of males. Mr. Speaker, in 2005 we had 9 deaths. In 2007, 7 murders. In 2008, 6. In 2009 we had 2 deaths. In 2010, 3. 2011, 5. 2012, 7. 2013, 9 deaths. And 2014, 3. And thankfully, Mr. Speaker, for the year 2015, we had 1 death due to domestic violence reported.
Mr. Blackett also talked about how victims of domestic violence would benefit from the amendments.
It responds to the perception of victims of their need for safety and their protection, and it also promises speedy hearing of the cases and the comparable determination action. It also provides a meaningful alternative for women who do not want to invoke the criminal process and pursue the case against the perpetrator. However, Mr. Speaker, prior to the enactment of this specialized law, persons who experience physical violence within interpersonal relationships were forced to rely on the police and the criminal justice system for protection, or otherwise seek injunctive relief in the High Court.
A member of the opposition is concerned about what he believes is the excessive power the changes will afford members of the Royal Barbados Police Force. MP for St. Joseph Dale Marshall points out that under the amendment, police officers can arrest citizens suspected of planning to commit an act of domestic violence. He argues that an arrest in such circumstances is unconstitutional.
They are expected and obligated as a part of their sacred trust with the people to intervene. But this bill, Mr. Speaker and Mr. Attorney General, is giving the police a power to arrest. Now, the difficulty attendant with that, Mr. Speaker, is that the power of arrest relates to a criminal act. And we're not talking about civil arrest, which is a different thing. The power of arrest relates to a criminal act that you have already done.
A concern tonight that government is not benefiting from the controversial tipping fee it introduced last year, and it's leading to what could become a potential environmental crisis for the island. The tipping fee was introduced under very controversial circumstances last year. Private waste haulers not only refused to pay the $25 fee, they also staged days of protest to press home their position. It led to huge garbage pileups across the island and government temporarily waiving the fee. It's now fully in force, but businessman Ralph Busy Williams says while the haulers have been charging their customers the fee, they're not paying it to the Sustainable Barbados Recycling Centre, or SBRC, in St. Thomas.
They would charge the customer, sure enough, but they would take the garbage and do whatever they feel like doing with it, breaking the law. And so instead of receiving about 1,000 tons a day of garbage, we're down to 300 odd tons a day.
Mr. Williams, the principal in the SBRC, says from his investigations, some of the garbage is being dumped in Zone 1 areas with a potential detrimental impact on the environment. He adds that while it was government's intention to cut down some of its costs related to garbage disposal, it is not really benefiting from the initiative.
It is very difficult for people to have to go to the Sanitation Services Authority's headquarters to buy a book of tickets and bring them to the SBRC to be and use the tickets to pay when they bring garbage there. That is an inconvenient way to do it. I don't know why it wasn't done so that you could just swipe a credit card and pay for the receipt of the garbage.
He told an expo on health and safety hosted by Pinnacle Safety Solutions this matter has to be resolved urgently. Well, Environment Minister Dr. Dennis Lowe has acknowledged some difficulties relating to the tipping fee. He was speaking while piloting a $6.8 million supplemental for the Sanitation Service Authority through Parliament this afternoon. He says the introduction of the tipping fee later than originally planned, as well as a reduction in the allocation to the SSA, resulted in a shortfall to the department.
Aside from the fact that that has become somewhat challenging for waste haulers, we believe that the spread is too narrow, and if we follow the global conventional belief that the polluter pays, then it means that everybody who is involved in waste generation have to become a part and parcel of the process of paying for the collection of waste. What we do not accept, however, is that a tipping fee should encourage anyone to engage in illegal dumping.
Dr. Lowe says there is a clear example of illegal dumping close to the water table in the Belle St. Michael.
The Environmental Protection Department just submitted a report to the ministry saying that they are dumping materials that will produce leachate that will contaminate the water source. And you have persons who are walking around and saying that it is because of a tipping fee that somebody would go and set up an illegal dump site. And then you have advocates who are saying to persons who want to develop different products in Barbados, go and build a treatment plant for Story Gap, but not for the Belle. And the Belle has been on the table for such a treatment plant for years.
Coming up after the break, AgroFest booked out well in advance.
Enjoy Bonanza, a decadent candy bar. Now introducing another perfect combination with added cranberries and strawberry filling. The Bonanza you love and the new Bonanza Berry. Experience richness you deserve.
Why advertise with the Barbados Yellow Pages? Get the facts. There are over 190,000 books distributed island-wide annually. Over 5 million online searches annually. Access to Google-certified experts to manage your SEM campaigns. The only multimedia company with solutions to market your business through print, online, and mobile platforms. The facts are clear. Your business needs to be listed in the...
Sandals, sandals, sandals galore. Megville gives you ladies sandals for this week only. Monday to Saturday, one pair of sandals for only $25. So go to Megville on Tudor Street, High Street, and Palmetto Street for a pair of sandals for only $25. This week only, Monday to Saturday. Megville for good shoes at good prices on always.
Well, if you're thinking about having an exhibit at AgroFest 2016, think again. That's because all the spaces at the Agricultural Showcase slated for Queen's Park next month are sold out. Chief Executive Officer of the Barbados Agricultural Society, James Paul, broke the news during an AgroFest workshop for exhibitors at the office of the Rural Development Commission on Bridge Street. He revealed that as it stands, officials are still trying to find space for participants who have already signed up. Mr. Paul says it's a sign that people are recognizing that major business opportunities often come from participating in AgroFest.
People do come after AgroFest to inquire for persons located at certain stalls or booths at the case review. If you leave information, we can get to you, and we can put people onto you, and that is very important. But you have to look at the event as an opportunity for you to let people know about your business, to exploit business opportunities, and in that way, you'll be able to take maximum opportunity of the event at the same time.
The BAS boss is meanwhile issuing a word of caution to food vendors. He's urging them to work closely with Ministry of Health officials to avoid any problems.
Whatever documents you're supposed to get, make sure you have them and you satisfy their requirements. Because at the same time, one of the things that we're trying to do is to increase visitor attendance. And one of the good things about AgroFest so far is that we have not had any reports of any food diseases and things like that. We want to keep it that way. And in that regard, the only way we can do that is if we at least ensure that we take the necessary measures or steps to ensure that nobody gets sick.
Barbados has diagnosed a few cases of dengue fever so far this year, but Acting Chief Medical Officer Dr. Kenneth George says the number of cases is far less than what was found in the past. He tells CBC News, however, now is the time for people to increase their vigilance against the Aedes aegypti mosquito, which transmits dengue and chikungunya, as well as the newly discovered Zika virus. Dr. George says the ministry is using multiple strategies to help get rid of the pest.
We have even been looking at some newer models with introducing newer chemicals that are odorless to act as fogging agents. There's some newer chemicals around which we feel is very environmentally friendly. So we'll be stepping up that. We're meeting with our environmental health officers, the principals and the seniors, to make sure that they strengthen the prevention and control programs in the catchment.
The acting CMO has assured the public the ministry will continue to monitor the situation and advise as necessary. It's believed that Barbados and other regional governments need a reality check about any present or future plans to develop a regional airline. A retired academic believes it hasn't worked in the past and it won't work now. Retired Professor of Linguistics at the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine, Ian Robertson, gave his take on the situation during the inaugural Richard Alsop Memorial Lecture. It was held last night at the Arts Lecture Theatre at the UWI Cayfield campus.
We have our airlines, and we had one airline, then we had two, then we have three, then we have a whole pile of airlines all over the place, all of them failing. None of them making money because we can't, none of them surviving because the reality is 5 million people cannot support that kind of endeavor. That is the reality. And if we don't deal with the reality, we are never going to manage to resolve our issues.
Professor Robertson believes the late pioneer lexicographer, Professor Richard Alsop, had the right vision for the region in promoting the business of a multilingual space through his work.
Always surprises people when you say to them, you know something? Supposedly the officially English-speaking territories in the country, in the region, are either third or fourth numerically. If you look around the region, there's much more Spanish, much more French, all right? And a little bit of English. Okay, I mean, the official, if you counted heads and official languages. So that's what happens. And we need, I think, that vision, which allows us to develop the sense of the Caribbean as a multilingual space.
Still to come, news from around the region. Stay with us.
We are builders. We build from foundation to rooftop.